Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Payments Leaders Show. I am your host, Adrian Evans, and absolutely thrilled today to invite Antony Stephen. Antony, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Adrian. Good to be with you.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So Antony is the CEO of Barclays Partner Finance. And you know that on this show, we are interested in how business is conducted in the payments ecosystem and not just what business is conducted. I have been reliably informed that Antony is one of those human-centric leaders who leads by bringing people together first, providing a direction, and leading with values. And of course, one of the key things we're keen to do is to embrace opportunities that are obvious in the payments industry before we actually look at the challenges. So, Antony, thank you very much. I know how busy 2024 has started for you, so thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule. I wonder if we could start with what are the foundations that have made you the person and the leader that you are today?
Great question, Adrian. I think it goes a little bit back to my upbringing and childhood. I spent first 20 years of my life in India, raised in a very traditional background, very different culture, grown up in Asia. Then I spent the next 25 years in the States. Again, very, very different culture, different setup for me, where I think I grew personally, professionally there as an adult. And the last 6 years I've been in London again. Very, very different, I would say. People find it hard to believe when I say how different the UK is compared to the US. In fact, I find more in common. So for me, what shaped me is one, my upbringing, very rigorous academic background, growing up in India. That's what I expected to do. Coming to America really opened up the way you think, the way you act, the sense of independence, accountability, ownership the country provides, the ability to experiment, try, not have to color within the lines within the States. And then coming to the UK has opened up a whole new world. I thought the world was the US. I worked in global companies, but just having lived here, it's a different culture, the way people think, act, the diversity that I've had over the last 30 some years, actually 50 years, I would say, honestly, of different cultures, different mindsets, different ways to solve a problem, different ways to analyze, different ways to react, different cultural impacts have really helped form who I am. Gives me a very unique perspective, even from a professional perspective, working at whether it's Citibank, an acquirer, to a MasterCard, which is a network, going to Capital One monoline card company, going to JP Morgan, which is also did acquiring, issuing, then going to a retailer at like Amazon, spending 6 years there. So seeing the full credit cards life cycle has been quite formative to say is when you think about a payments transaction, I'm seeing it from different lenses. Obviously, of the consumer view, that I've seen how it's evolved from cash to check to debit to credit to Apple Pay, to buy now, pay later now that I'm a huge part of my life right now. But also seeing it from the different perspectives of the different people in the ecosystem, the different handoffs that happen have really formulated that payments mindset for me.
Right, brilliant. So given the, I suppose that holistic view you have of the whole of the payments ecosystem and also worked and operated across 3 continents, can I ask you, what are some of the differences that you see in those cultures, but also what are some of the similarities that you can bring together when you're trying to operate a global business?
I think, let me talk with the similarities.
Sure.
I think people in general, if you work, I have teams in India right now. I've had teams in India for the last 10 plus years. I've obviously lived and worked in the States, worked here. The common thread across is everybody wants to do the right thing. Everybody wants to get things done. They're excited to work on new things. That is the same, doesn't matter where you go. I think there's nuances between work ethic. That I would say is a big difference. In India, it's quite common to work 6 days a week, be in the office Monday through Saturdays. Saturdays considered a working day. In the UK, it's very clear Monday through Friday. In the US, you work 24/7. At least the companies I worked for in America, you're never off, you're on all the time. Doesn't matter if you're on vacation, you're at a personal event, it's evening or weekend. The culture, at least the companies
Mm.
I worked for, you were on, you responded, high degree of engagement. You don't really unplug. The UK I find very different. When people go on holiday, I love it. They go on holiday. They don't take their laptops. They don't check emails.
Okay.
It's across Europe. It's just not just UK. I have teams in France, Italy, Spain, Germany that I've worked with for the last 10 years that are just absolutely clear. This is work. I mean, I'm here. I'm 100% here.
Yeah.
High degree of ownership. But when I'm gone, I'm gone. In the US, I'm 25 years, never had that. My laptop traveled with me on every vacation. India, I would say somewhere in between. So the differences, I would say, from people are the amount of engagement is very different. Secondly, I feel depends on company for the most part. I felt there was a lot more empowerment in some companies I worked at, where and culturally in the U.S. more so than I've seen, a lot more empowerment, a lot more autonomy, especially like places like Amazon where the company doesn't have a CIO or CTO or CMO, CPO, CRO. These C roles didn't exist. You were empowered to make decisions and you made calls by yourself. And I saw that a lot more in the US when I was my time at Capital One or JP Morgan, versus maybe it's a lot to do with banking, I would say is a lot less, a lot more regulation for the companies that forced you to go through a lot more of collaboration, conversation, a lot more checks. You got to go through your op risk, credit risk, legal, audit, compliance. And as I work with companies in India, work with partners in India, I see somewhere in between the US and the UK. Even just having, if I compare bank to bank to bank, I could see just the level of autonomy and scrutiny is quite different. I don't know if that answered your question, Adrian.
No, that's wonderful, and I think what's great is that's why I'm so excited to have you on the show is because the sheer breadth you have across the whole of the ecosystem there to see different lenses combined with a culture and combined with different operating systems. One very decentralized and many others highly regulated. You have to adapt and you have to evolve. So I think there's going to be some more questions about how to succeed most in those different environments when we come further on.
Yeah, I'll add one more point to the last
Sure.
question. The other thing I would say is I find culturally, I'm just having again compared all three, I find a little bit more top-down direction coming from when you work with companies in India. A lot of the decisions are made at the top, decisions getting pushed down, and not very much push back up the chain. It's very cultural as well. Having grown up there, I could say it's more directive. Not necessarily a bad thing. It's just it's different. I found that in America, one of the big things I struggled with going there was I would sit in a meeting with my boss, and two of my peers would be arguing with my boss, and I'd be terrified early on in my career. Oh my God, that's your boss. He knows more than you. He's been there a long time. He's telling you to do something, and here you're sitting there having an argument. Then I realized how healthy that was. How it was your responsibility as a corporate citizen to challenge, respectfully, of course, with data, with facts.
Sure.
And then I would see my leadership actually say, you know what, Joe or Sue, that's a great point. I think I've changed my mind. You're really right. This is not how we should do things. And I love that. I love that about working in the States is it was encouraged. Pretty much every company I work for really, hey, you know what, challenge your leaders. It's your responsibility to do that. Have backbone and really stand up for what you believe in. I love that part of the culture that it took a while for me to embrace. But now that I embrace it, found that very important for success for the company colleagues to do that.
That's fascinating. I just wonder if we could take a little segue down there. How did you? Because it sounds like that was a culture shock to start with for you.
Huge.
So you sat in a meeting, then you think this just isn't how we do things. So how did you go about trying to adapt to that? Because I'd imagine that suddenly felt different, but you sort of realized that you needed to adjust to the context and the environment.
I think just way I was wired, coming into America very young, I was in sponge mode, learning the culture, everything to learn, the accent, the sports were different, culturally just what people ate, how people spoke and how transparent, open they were. Very different. It was amazing for me. It was like a whole new land. So when I got into corporate world and sat in rooms, I would observe and learn from my peers and how to integrate into the culture and how to be more American in my thinking and mindset and how to fit into the company's culture. So one was the American culture, second was the company culture, bring them together. So what I started off by doing is when I found that I had something to say, I would not say it in a meeting because I was afraid to, either being new to the country or new to the company, or just being more junior in my career. I would wait and finish the meeting and go to the decision maker and say, hey, would it be okay if I ran something by you? This was the discussion in the meeting. Here's what I thought. And I had great mentors and leaders. They said, Antony, that's a great point. Why didn't you bring it up in the room?
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
afraid to
absolutely.
do so. And they would say, no. And what they started doing, a lot of my leaders, knowing how I was kind of more timid in meetings and intimidated a little bit by the people in the room, they would actually call on me and say, Antony, what is your point of view? You've not said anything. Do you have a point of view on this? And that helped me open up in meetings and have the conversation. And I share that primarily because just it is cultural. Some people are just built differently.
Yeah.
Just more introverted, not comfortable speaking up. I would say speak up, be brave, if you have data and you might be wrong 5 times out of 10, that's okay. But really putting your point of view out there is important because that's why the company's hired you. You're a smart person. They've gone through proper recruiting channels, hired you to bring you to the table, bring that diversity of thought there. Not necessarily every time you say something, your manager, your peers are going to agree, but the one time they do, you made a difference there. And it's very, very important to have that voice there. And for me, there was having good leaders and good mentors that encouraged me to really come out of that shell and really not be intimidated. And it was okay to be wrong. It's just creating a culture where you could speak up. I'm very blessed to be around people that help me do that.
Brilliant. I'm always looking for a headline quote throughout the podcast, and I think I've probably got it already, which is actually to people is like, be brave enough to express your voice because your voice is valuable. Yep, your voice is valuable. So no, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. I know that will be very, very helpful for many people in the audience who are either leaders already or aspiring leaders. So I wonder, just shifting gears a bit more personally here, what are the values that that have made you whom you are, but also have the impact today on your business? You now run an extensive business, but what are your personal values that have the impact on the organization today?
Yep. So a few things I'll share. Some of them are not great from a personal life perspective, but professional, they're good. So take it with a grain of salt. And really, I'll also share very openly
Thank
mistakes
you.
I've made as we go through this. Some of my strengths professionally are failures on the personal front.
Okay.
So, that people have to take that in balance. Some things you do early on in your career when you don't have wife and kids or husband and kids or partners are different from what you would do later on in life as you are responsible for more lives and have more responsibilities. So for me, high level value system again drilled into my head early on from my parents back in India's work hard. Really, there's absolutely no alternative to hard work. Work hard. Growing up in a country with 1 billion people, getting into a school was hard. Getting into a college or university was hard. Getting a job was hard. There's 50,000 applications for 400 seats. The university I went to, right? So you really, really had to be the cream of the crop and really work exceptionally hard. There's no other alternative to it. So for me, hard work was drilled in very young, and I still set an example for my children, for my team. Sun up to sundown, first one in the door in the office, last one out the door. Uh, Always focused on work. And that's really helped me do well when I lived in the States because I fit into the culture of being on all the time, working all the time. An email came out, doesn't matter, it was 11 p.m., logged back in, took care of it, got done, cleared the inbox. So hard work was one. Second is be curious. We want to learn, continue to learn. I'm 50 years now, I still want to learn. Every day I come into work, what can I learn? So joining a company where I could learn from my peers, from my manager, from my team was very important. As I've selected organizations to work in, I want to teach, coach, be a leader, but also want to learn, continuously wanting to learn, being curious. Third for me is being able to adapt.
Yeah.
So going from a culture to a culture to a culture to a company, if you're not willing to adapt and you're going to say, I'm stuck, these are my ways, you're not going to succeed. Right?
Yeah.
Each company's got a different culture. Each company's got a different mindset. If you find one you like and you stay there for 30 years, a lot of my colleagues at Barclays are in the same company 35 years, the only place they work, great, good for you. But if you're looking to move around, you've got to be able to adapt. For me, being able to adapt to not eating steaks in India, to go to America and not having ever had sushi, to a business dinner where you go to a sushi restaurant, you're like, oh, raw fish. Right?
Yeah.
You can't order anything else. You're in Tokyo in a sushi restaurant. Guess what? You're eating sushi. So being able to adapt, try different things, being comfortable with that is going to be key, especially in an ever-changing world, different changing corporate cultures. You may not want to leave your company, but you can get acquired by a company or have a complete leadership shift with different cultural mindset. You have to learn to adapt. That's going to be very key. And be humble. I think that's something I tell people, be humble. I don't have an ego of high self-esteem. I don't get insulted when people are rude to me or disrespectful, whether at work, outside work. I'll let it roll off my back because what they said should not impact who I am, what I believe in. So for me, humility is super important. Your team will respect that. Your team will appreciate it. You become more approachable to people. Your team has an idea, they want to come and talk to you. They have a grievance, they want to come and talk to you. You got to create an environment where they're like, I'm very comfortable walking up to Antony and have a conversation. So even today, and I continue to do this throughout my career, I have office hours twice a week. Anybody can set up time, don't have to talk to me, go straight in, block 20 minutes and have any conversation with me. Every week. Having that accessibility to your entire team globally to come and be able to talk to you on anything. I tell them, come and talk to me about your favorite Netflix show. Come and talk to me about a concern you have at home that you're struggling with. You're having some, mental health crisis outside work. That's fine too. Come and talk to me. I've kind of been through all of it. You baby at home, I'll tell you how to deal with work and having a baby. Right? Oh, you want to have a work conversation about a challenge you have? Confidentially, come and have the conversation.
Sure.
So being more humble, being more available, I think helps people. So I would say those are qualities that have helped me over my career. People look at me and go, I like Antony. He works hard. He's going to be an asset to the team. I can trust him. He's super reliable. I give him something to do. It's going to get done. He's all over it. Communication's clear. And he's going to be humble enough to own up and say, I made a mistake. I screwed up, raise my hand and fall on my sword and say, I'm sorry, but I learned from it. I'll fix it. These are important qualities, not just managers look for, but your peers and your team looks for when I look up to a manager. Is he going to have my back? Is he going to be able to be a good coach? Is he going to be a good mentor? Is he going to help me grow my career? Does he care enough about me? And like I treat my team like my family. The Christmas dinners are not just a corporate thing. It's bring your spouses, bring your partners. Let's get to meet. So I celebrated my 50th birthday, invited my directs and their partners and said, come meet my wife, meet my children. When people get to know who the person is, very different conversations come out. Even with partners I work with, clients I work with, I make it a very family thing. I get to know who you are. First question is, hey, how many kids do you have? What does your partner do? Where'd you grow up? Tell me about your family. And I'll share my journey. And God, the walls come down. People able to see you as a human being. Very open conversations start fostering. I've negotiated billion-dollar contracts globally. Just connecting with somebody at a personal level.
Absolutely.
Very easy conversation, as opposed to I'm company A or company B, we're representing the company, let's butt heads. Which is we're two guys, two women, two men, a group of people, doesn't matter, different backgrounds. We all want the same thing, a good partnership, a healthy partnership. When we can connect at that personal level, be humble, be transparent, be honest, be open, great things happen.
I'm smiling because obviously at Payments Leaders Advisory, my business, that's exactly how we operate. Yeah, is we have a bank of knowledge and we have a great group of advisors. But for me, it's about always being curious, and actually staying humble and building trust with people. I couldn't agree more. We're very lucky to have the clients we have, but every one of those is a deep personal relationship too. It's a great way of doing business, and you're absolutely right. When you make a connection, the barriers, all business to business is really person to person and human to human. Yeah. So wonderful. So in terms of, I'm reliably informed you are a leader from people who've previously worked with you who say you lead with decency and you lead with connection, as you've just described. I wonder if you could tell for me, and perhaps we could dive a bit deeper, what's the connection between decency and commercial success?
I think I truly believe they're absolutely interlinked. I don't think you can separate them. There are people that do that. People I've worked with, or I've
Yes, yeah.
seen corporations
Yeah,
that do that. I think for me, it's very personal. I don't want to compromise my values for commercial success. Very simply put, Adrian. So for me, I can't do a deal that's going to screw a partner over or a customer, give them a bad experience for the sake of commercial, which is why I loved working at the companies I worked at,
yeah,
Amazon, Barclays, great places where you can be making a decision that's commercially not great for the company, but great for the partner or great for the customer, end customer. These companies put their values on that. Do the right thing for the client, do the right thing for the customer. It's okay, we'll make less return, but this is the right thing to do. This is the
yeah,
values we operate under. For me, that's why I've picked these companies to work in because they align with my personal values.
yeah,
Right. So for me, they're not, in my mind, just the way I operate. I can't work in a place where commercial success is different from doing the right thing or decency. So decency goes different levels, right? So it is doing the right thing for not just people outside work, your clients and your customers, but for people that work for you, with
yeah,
you. So from a leadership perspective, and when you go into a meeting with your team and you talk about doing the right thing, they realize that your values are interlinked, the company's values interlinked to success of
yeah,
people. And so they believe in you and say, Antony's doing the right thing. And every conversation is about doing the right thing, whether it's for a colleague, whether it's for a client or a customer, pick one, or the community. He's doing the right thing every time. They want to work for you. They want to leave your
yeah,
team. They could get better offers outside. They'll be transparent with you. They'll be comfortable with you and say, Antony, I got a better offer. Commercially, it's a better outcome for me. I make more money, but I don't want to leave working for you because I feel like I belong as part of this family. Every company I've left, I've stayed in touch with my team. In fact, I do a lot of dinners, a lot of one-on-ones, coffee, socials. That tells me a lot of the fact that I'm not their manager anymore and I've left has not changed them wanting to talk every week or I'd be on a WhatsApp chat or grab dinner, wish me for my birthday or Christmas or Easter or holidays in general. I find that connection stays.
yes,
That's because of the decency, right? You've taken care of them. People that unfortunately have had to let go still stay in touch. I've
wow,
had conversations with people saying, I'm sorry, this is not the right employer for you. Your performance is not there. And the way I've managed that exit, giving them, respect, treating them decently, having them, not leave in a very bad way, but to say, let's figure out what's best for you. Let's figure out a path
yeah,
for you that's good for your career. Here are your strengths. Let's find you an employer, right? How can I be a reference to the right employer? So
brilliant,
that tells you a lot about how you treat people, not just the people you promoted. They're always going to be happy, grateful, want to be close to you, but also the people that you've had to exit from an employer you worked for that want to continue to stay in touch, want you to continue mentoring them. That says a lot how you treat people. So for me, I think they're interlinked. I learned a lot more about how to do that at Amazon.
right,
I went there, 20 years in banking at that point. I went there. My first interaction at Amazon was making a decision that was right for customers, but terrible commercially. And
yeah,
Jeff Bezos has drilled that into the company's DNAs. Do the right thing for the customer, even if it means it's a bad commercial outcome. And we wrote a very large check to make sure customers were treated correctly. That was a huge aha moment in my career to say, here's a company that puts their money where their mouth is. And I've taken that learning, I share that experience. I won't go to the details on the call, but on this podcast, but happy for people to ping me separately, and I'm happy to have conversations about it. But I've taken that experience throughout the last, I would say, 8, 9 years, and carried it with me to Barclays. Luckily enough, Barclays is a company that also stands behind similar values of doing the right things for customers. Here, you know, um, there are some hard decisions I've had to make at Barclays over the last couple of years that cost the company hundreds of millions, hundreds
right,
of millions of pounds. But that's the right thing for the customer, and the company stood behind it. So it's absolutely fascinating working for large organizations that put people and values and customers in front of profits. So I don't think they're two separate things, or there are companies that do that. I couldn't work there because I think that would be super demoralizing for me to be in that environment, and I wouldn't last very long.
Antony, thank you for sharing that. And just to go a bit deeper on that, you and I share a core value, which is about doing the right thing and integrity. Can you just share your lens about what that integrity means to you? And perhaps you could give me some examples, or give us some examples of that where you've actually displayed that.
So again, comes back, we use the word decency, but it all ties back to the same integrity, right? It's all about having the integrity. Adrian, I'm going to struggle to give examples only because I feel like these are all corporate examples.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I would be just uncomfortable sharing
Sure.
information about any of my employers. But
Sure.
A very vague example I'll give about integrity is one of the employees I worked with ran a promotion. And the promotion, we had set aside X million dollars to run the promotion. The promotion was exceptionally successful, and the program was supposed to run for 4 days. But in the first day, we ran out of the money. We set aside because it was exceptionally very generous promotion, great, and we were advertising it on our website, but it also got leaked or shared on various social media sites. So this is a great deal. This particular company is doing this. This is great for customers. You should all take advantage. Now we ran out of money, and we basically said the deal's done. We won't be honoring this anymore, which was very properly advertised.
Yep.
However, when customers started complaining, saying, hey, I saw this thing on this other website on slickdeals.com or something else on Facebook. I came to redeem it, but it said the deal was done. Yes, I see it's a limited time offer. Can I avail of it? I'm disappointed that day one or day two into a 4-day program or a sale or an event, this promo is not available. The integrity really kicked in here by saying, yes, we did all the things by the book. It was properly advertised, limited time offer. There was a clock, that countdown clock ran out of funds. Deal was done. But we said, you know what? Customers love this, love us. They want to shop here. Let's do the right thing for the customer. Let's give them the promotional value that they had expected coming in to shop, even though it expired. Do the right thing. For me, that's a great example of a company or leadership demonstrating a certain degree of integrity, which was above and beyond. They're not breaking the letter of the law or the spirit of the law, but just going above and beyond to say, put ourselves in the customer's shoes. Do we really want to disappoint customers? Right. Other forms of integrity, I feel like, are doing the right thing for your colleagues. Be honest and open. Not just the good news, but also the bad news. Don't just tell the company line. Be real. Be honest. Be genuine when you share. Sometimes there's bad news, right? I've had to work for an employer where we ended up shutting an entire site down. Right? A couple of thousand people lost their jobs. Don't do the party line. Go there and be honest, be real, and sit in the room and say, here's how I really feel about what happened. Here's the reasons why we made the call. It's all commercial. We realize there's human impact here. Here's what we're doing from a severance perspective. This is back in the States many years ago. I had to do this. There's tears in the room. There's people personally impacted. There's lives. But really, integrity here comes into play, and really saying, I'm not just going to read from a piece of paper. I'm going to tell you what's really happening, and really, obviously don't break company confidentiality. There's a few things, don't break the law, but being more real with people, more genuine with people, being more honest, and really saying what are the reasons why things are happening. The outcome doesn't change, but people really feel good about what they've heard, right? Don't be on a Zoom call and do this, meet people in person, do this in face-to-face. If it's not COVID, you can actually sit down with your people and have the conversation face-to-face, do it, right? And these are kind of things that are important to me. Treat people well. And whether you're going to be working with them short-term or long-term doesn't matter. Just doing the right thing for the colleague is going to be very, very important. That integrity I learned growing up. It was is very different what I learned. When I went to America, it changed quite a bit. I
Yeah.
felt that there was a higher bar for integrity going to America. Again, a huge switch for me culturally coming there and saying, oh, this is not okay anymore. Because I'm in a new country and the bar is higher for integrity. The bar is higher for what's accepted and what's right. Because going up culturally, you do things and you look at things around you. Um, and it's okay because everybody does it. It's okay in the country you grew up in. It's okay in the culture. That's completely fine there. But when you go outside and you go, you know what? It's not okay here. Again, comes back to being able to adapt and learn and evolve and change and improve, honestly. And then once you have a higher bar, it's okay if you go back to a different culture environment, keep the bar. That's the right thing to do. Don't lower it because it's okay to do this in another country.
Brilliant, brilliant. I love those examples, and as you say as well, just because you have a bar in one country doesn't mean it can't be raised and staying adaptive and changing. Love those examples, particularly with people exiting from an organization as well, about maintaining that connection. You mentioned earlier the value of mentors at various points during your career. Whether you're comfortable mentioning names or not, but what have you learned extensively from mentors over the time as you've adapted and evolved as a leader?
So mentors have been absolutely instrumental in my life, personally and professionally. It started off, some of my mentorship started professionally that have evolved into a personal side as well. It's been fascinating. So my first mentor I met was at Citibank. I'll mention his name. He's a senior executive of Manulife in Canada, Rahul Joshi. I randomly ran into him in a meeting, absolutely loved the way he conducted himself. I was a new professional, first job, and I saw how confident he was and how well he articulated himself and how well he ran the meeting, how he made tough calls. And I said, hey, would you like to be my mentor? He was kind enough to take me on. This was June 1996. He's still my mentor. So mentorships don't have to be short term, they can be long term. And over time, every job decision I've made, a lot of my personal decisions I've made, I've gone to him and said, what do you think? Having known me for so many decades, and he's seen me go from a young professional to married with kids to growing professionally. And even now I go to him and say, hey, I got this recruiter calling me. This is the job. What do you think? I absolutely love his advice, very unbiased. I've had various mentors along the way at various employers. At Cap One, I had a really, really good mentor. I'll mention his name, Bob Meister. I was a junior person. He was senior to me in the organization. He continued mentoring me for 10 years that I was there. And I've been through a lot of difficult times there, relocations, job challenges, layoffs, role eliminations. He was there with me throughout. And I went from senior manager to senior director to VP and so on and so forth, progressed along. And at one point, organizationally, from a title perspective, I'd gotten promoted over him. And I didn't change my mentor because it wasn't about the level, it's about the person, their values, their integrity, their advice, being an effective sounding board. So mentorship is, in my mind, is not about levels. It's not, it's about the person who really has the right mental framework to be an advisor to you, who is unbiased, who's got a lot of experience that they can tap into and share with you. That's very important. I'm a mentor to a lot of people, but my mentors, I have a mentor at Amazon, somebody I respect tremendously and value, David Williams. He was a peer of mine, ended up becoming my manager. He's actually one of my customers, a senior leader at Amazon, global head of payments. But still, mentorship. I ping him on WhatsApp on a Saturday and say, David, I want your advice. He'll make the time for me. Antony, call me. What's going on? Let's talk. Don't wait to schedule time. Pick up the phone. I love having people in my life. The list is long. I'm grateful to all of them, naming just a few. David's an ex-boss, now end of the day on the customer side. I still feel comfortable going to him because he'll compartmentalize it and give me advice for what I need, not factor in his role, my role, our relationship outside. So mentors, if you don't have a mentor, my big advice, please get one. Excellent. Really, really important. My career, my mentors have played such an incredible part of me making good choices. And sometimes I've not listened to my mentors, made bad choices, and it's not worked out well. And That's a huge lesson learned.
Okay.
That, trust them. Sometimes it's your gut, it's your heart, but your mentors are there to protect you, guide you.
Sure.
I've had a mentor who basically met somebody I was dating and said, this is not going to be good for you, Antony. You shouldn't date this person. So they've kind of come into my personal life and they said, I know you, I know your core values.
Yeah.
This is not good for you. So it's interesting how mentorship has um, gone past the professional domain into my personal life. And it's great advice. Now that I think back, 23 years later, I met my better half. And now I look back and go, yeah, that was great advice.
Okay. So some really good advice there for the audience is have multiple mentors and be driven by the connection, but also take their advice. Yep. I think it sounds like it can work on many fronts. Yeah. So just looking back and reflecting on your younger self, what do you know now that you wish you knew when you were starting out, and so first, second role? What really stands out? What are the sort of top three things that you would say to yourself, to your 21-year-old self?
So a long list. We need a special podcast just for that.
Okay.
Because I've made so many mistakes in my life that I wish I'd known all these things that I could go back and undo. So one of the things I alluded to earlier about things that I value, things that have helped me in life, that have hurt me on the other side, is I've over-indexed on professional growth and ignored my family to a certain point. I'm very fortunate to be blessed with a partner that's run the house, run the schools, take care of the kids, raise them independently. Most people in my kids' school thought my wife was a single parent. Never went to school, never went to a PTA meeting, missed every recital, missed every birthday, anniversary, because I put work ahead of a professional career. I regret that. I miss spending time with my kids growing up. Thankfully, I've corrected course, but pretty late. I wish I was there with them a lot more during the teen years, but hopefully the last few years have been great. I've got a lot more time for them with them. And my wife ran the house. She basically said, you're a workaholic, you're never there. So for me, as much I talk about work, passion for career progression, work hard, be dedicated to your employer, do the right thing, work on that. Don't ignore your family. I really ignored, I've, just damaged some really good relationships in my life because I prioritize work.
Right.
Most recently, my parents celebrated the 50th wedding anniversary. They want to celebrate with me. They came to London all the way to celebrate with me. And I got on a plane for a very important business trip and I missed the actual day. I celebrated with them early, but on the day off, I wasn't there. Now I think about it, that was stupid. Right? Now that's a decision I made not too long ago, 2 or 3 years ago. So it wasn't my 21-year-old self, but
Right.
I really think back and say made some poor decisions on work-life harmony, work-life balance. Work will always be there, career progression will be there. I've relocated family a lot. My wife has been, this is our 9th home that we just bought in London.
Right.
She's followed me around, packed up, shipped stuff, movers, pack, ship, movers, settle down, make new friends, pick up, move. I feel like I've disrupted the family. The positive side is my kids and wife have had a global experience. My kids are global citizens, lived in many places, but I don't feel like I've given my kids roots. So London, 6 years, we finally said we're putting roots in here. This is home. Something for the kids to come home and say, this is my house, this is my room. I get to live here. So going back to my 21-year self is really find that balance, work hard, be ambitious, but also don't ignore your family, really spend that time. Don't make decisions that are great for career, but only factor in the personal impact on your wife and your children or your husband or your partner and your children. I think that's very important. I feel that's one thing I want to give to people is I see a lot of the younger generation doing a better job than I did.
Yep.
For me, coming as an immigrant from India to the United States on a work visa, afraid to lose my job, lose my visa, be kicked out of the country. I made some really poor choices that were very work-centric, protecting my job, protecting my visa, things like that. I was under pressure. I didn't want to go home and be a failure to my parents. I don't know if my parents would have felt that way, but I felt I would have been. I felt that I had to do all these things, which I think now I look back. The second thing I'll say is I cared a lot about what people thought about me. I overvalued opinion. Some things are important. People give you feedback, take it, embrace it, improve yourself. I was a people pleaser.
Okay.
I did a lot of things I shouldn't have to do just because I wanted to be pleasing people. I put too much emphasis on what people thought about me, what they would say about me, so made some unnatural choices. So for me, now that I look back, I said, oh, that was suboptimal. Why did I do that?
Mhm.
Right? For example, somebody would invite me to a dinner, and professionally, I'd want to please them and say, oh, yeah, I'll make time for you. But I would have missed a dinner with my wife to go do that, or missed a kid's school event to go to a client dinner. Um, I could have delegated somebody, but oh no, what will the client think of me? I should prioritize that. So a lot of them are tied a little bit. So I made choices that were trying to please people at work and not please my family. I regret that. So a lot of me going back to my 20-year self is be confident in your skin, be confident in yourself, have better work-life harmony, focus on your family. Because those are balls that I've dropped. I can never pick that back up. Those times I missed with my children, my wife. I've been on vacation, sitting in the hotel room working and being on calls where they were at the beach. I could see them from the window, but I wasn't out there in the water with the kids or with my wife. So big regrets for me that I wish I could go back and undo. But hopefully I have enough time left. I can
Yeah.
make amends.
Wow. Look, thank you for so honestly and transparently sharing particularly that part towards the end. Actually, this is where I try and summarize our conversation. But I've got about 2 or 3 pages worth of notes in there. So would you mind if I just try and capture the salient points that I've gleaned
Please
from
do.
today? Would that be okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Wonderful. So I think first of all, for me, what struck me is a real common theme for you about connection to people across. So it's been the thread through the whole of this conversation, and that starts very much with knowing your values, and respecting the fact that people matter, and how you conduct yourself with decency, and integrity, and doing the right thing, and respecting the fact that most people turn up every day wherever they are in the world wanting to do the right thing and to do a good job. I think the second salient point for me was then actually just understanding that your voice does matter. So you've been employed usually by a very rigorous recruitment process, and the fact that you're in that room, make sure your voice is heard. Obviously, do it with data, do it with a level where you're looking to add value, but actually you've got a voice, express your voice because it could be the thing that could make a difference. And you're not going to get it right every single time. And I got the sense as well for leaders, make it safe enough for your team. So it's psychologically safe enough for them to express themselves, and they're not just going to get shot down by the hierarchy. I think the next piece for me really stood out about the similarities of all humans across the world, but also then wherever you are across the world, your core values of being curious, adapting, expressing your voice, and also then knowing that we can always connect with people. Those things have served you well because change is inevitable, and the way to stay ahead of change or to stay with change is to stay curious and keep on learning. I think we then moved to the other one that really stood out with me was the value of mentors and the value of professionally learning from people, and actually that's again being about connection. Amazing that you've got still a mentor from 3 decades ago who you still pick the phone up to, ask for advice. The other piece as well there, if you have mentors, listen to them. Yep, there's a good reason why that they again, I know what it's like as a mentor. If you're not listened to over a period of time, you're thinking, where's the value in the relationship for everybody there? And also, I think the core element for me, though, going back to integrity, though, was you can conduct yourself well with integrity, and it can align to commercial success. They don't need to be on parallel roads. And the other thing I really liked where you stood out was even when people are exiting the organization, it could be their performance, it could be a downsize, and it could be various things. But it's really impressive that many people still stay in contact with you, even when you've had to let them go. And actually, there's value in that because your personal reputation and your personal brand make a difference. And I think then, very honestly, there coming towards the end where you just mentioned about over prioritizing the professional developments, and there are costs to that, and just an awareness of yourself of how can you strike the optimal balance between life, your family, friends as well, and actually a professional career. So a poignant question to really for everybody to ponder. That they were my salient points. Any additions from yourself?
No, spot on. You've captured everything perfectly.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I can't thank you enough for today. I know the audience is going to really enjoy so much of your conduct and your behavior, and not just your success and where you came from. So I was very thrilled. So thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Adrian, for having me.